I know. I feel like I just like melted off the couch at this point, and I was like, then why even have a black box? Like, what are we even doing?
What is the black box doing if it's still telling the world that it can be used for toothaches forever? Hey everybody, we're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
I am Dr. Kristen.
You are so very welcome to our continuing coverage of Hulu's docu-series drama Dopesick. Almost forgot the name of the show there for a second, lol. We have a couple of announcements before we get into episode 7, Black Box Warning. A couple of things to shout out that are very exciting. So if you don't want spoilers for, I don't know, life, maybe don't watch this right now. Spoiler number 1. As we are filming this, our friends at Dopesick have been nominated for several Golden Globes, which is exciting. It was nominated for best, I don't know what the Globes is doing, but it's like limited series, mini-series, part-time thing. It's a really long category, but effectively limited series. Nominated for best limited series. Michael Keaton's been nominated, I believe, for supporting actor, as well as Caitlin Dever, which obviously we have told you already. Caitlin Dever should get all the awards. All of them. And we haven't even gotten into what happens in episode 7. Just give her the awards. Why are we holding competition for it? So that's very exciting news. Also, we have been asked by our friend Ed Bish on Twitter, hi Ed, to share with you, so it will be in the show notes for this. We'll be retweeting it and reposting it on our socials. Campaigners for justice, I guess, for Purdue Pharma and the opioid crisis they created knowingly, are asking for everyone, humans who care about humans, to write emails to the Attorney General asking that a special counsel be appointed to investigate Purdue Pharma more than is happening even in this bankruptcy case. So it would be a specific special counsel to look into that. So we will share the link to justice.gov if you are so inclined and feel compelled to do so. Please send an email and support our friends that are advocating for justice in this way. So, Ed, announcement out of the way. Kristen, go.
Now, there are 2 offline life updates in the downfall of the Sackler family. The first is that 2 weeks ago, the Metropolitan Museum of Art took their name off every single room they had paid to put their name on. And not only did the Met, say they were going to do it, it was one of those, everybody showed up in the morning and the names were already gone.
Yeah, I love that they did it, overnight, and then they were like, we're doing it. It's done. Boom.
It's done. One of them is the room in which the Met Gala takes place, the wing that the Met Gala takes place in every single year. And so that's really good. We now need to put pressure on the Guggenheim in particular. The Guggenheim, I believe, has agreed to not take any more of their money, but there is still things named after them. The Tate Modern still has things named after them. Harvard still has things named after them. There's lists all over the internet of the places that we need to continue to put pressure. But according to one of our most trusted advisors we've never met, Patrick Radden-Keefe, the Met is a bellwether. Lots of other organizations were waiting to see what the Met was going to do. And now that the Met has stripped their names, fingers crossed, we're going to get some more stripping. And so that's big, big news. Huge vindication, I think. And I don't think that Dopesick has nothing to do with it. I think this series...
Oh, no. This is
a part of the groundswell for all of us who are learning. We've talked to many people over the last several weeks who were unaware of what was happening until this series came out, which makes us so incredibly honored to be one of the voices talking about this series. We're very, very honored. And we're very grateful that we've heard from the writing staff of Dopesick that they also enjoy our coverage. So hello to Ben, hello to Danny, and to everybody else who has been giving us this incredible gift that we can now talk about to other people. Second offline life update. Recently, as this week, a federal judge overturned a statement so Purdue Pharma went bankrupt, and there had been in the bankruptcy case a ruling that the family itself was protected from civil litigation. And this week, a federal judge went, no, we're going to dial that one on back. And the family is now subject to civil litigation.
Right. And I think the bankruptcy, I'm not as versed on this. So if friends watching this are and want to correct me, or you are, but I think the bankruptcy was from the lawsuits, right? There were so many lawsuits against Purdue and so many payouts
filed by both states and individuals.
Yeah, because a lot of this, I think, came from all of the state governors, like 23 states or something.
Yeah, between like 17, 18, and 19. It was like a flood.
Who sued Purdue Pharma. Yeah. So, this they didn't just go bankrupt for because they weren't good at managing their billions of money.
Their cash they pay for their brand new glass headquarters.
This is all a part of this advocacy for holding and activism for holding them accountable for what they did.
Yes, thank you for filling in that gap in the story I was telling.
No, that's okay. Continue.
But yeah, so as cool as it was that Purdue, we saw that this advocacy was working so well and Purdue went bankrupt, to me, when the original ruling came out, it was like because it's the family. We all want the family to pay. We know we do. And so this federal judge's ruling that, in fact, the family might have to is quite exciting. I am very anxious to see who is going to be the first person to sue Richard Sackler personally, especially since this series has come out and some more of Beth Macy's research is, I think, Freedom of Information Act available. But anyway, we have been clear in this coverage of how we believe that some justice should be met out. I believe we talked about public stocks and throwing rotten fruit. So any way in which these folks can be held accountable would be utterly fantastic. And we are just thrilled. Now, this is particularly timely because just a little insider baseball here, folks. We filmed episodes 1 through 6 pretty quickly and then took a 2.5 week break because of travel and Thanksgiving and everything else. So a lot happened. And now we're back to talk about 7 and 8. As I am celebrating the season of incarnation. So it's a very emotionally fractious time. Especially to talk about episode 7, which for me personally was the hardest episode of the series, for a whole host of reasons. So just a heads up, even before Aaron gets into the summary, I'm going to let you know right up front because I needed to know this. I'm going to let you know this is the episode where Betsy dies. I needed to know that. I want to make sure that you all know that. If you need to prepare yourself before hearing us talk about it, I want you to be able to do that now. Because it very much happens at a guttural, visceral level, and you feel what happened. So I want you to know that. Now, Aaron, tell us what else happens.
Yes, I would be delighted to. So this episode is called Black Box Warning, and it's basically the story of how Purdue finds themselves in this pickle of getting a black box warning from the FDA, which is basically a warning that we learn will say that this drug is harmful. This drug is more harmful than we thought. This drug is potentially lethal. And so it's not a good thing for Purdue. It's a good thing for everybody else who needs to know that this drug is very harmful. So that's where this episode is going. But it starts way, way back in the year of our Lord, 1962, with a hearing in Congress where Arthur Sackler is testifying about what it's like to market pharmaceuticals.
And I believe he's with Pfizer at this point? Or is this he's already talking? Okay, I believe he's with Pfizer at this point.
I think so. I think it was before Purdue Pharma, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I watched this episode first with my mom and then second with Dr. Kristen last week. Was that just last week? I don't know. Who knows when it was? But I watched it a second time. But
sobbing in a hotel room in Charleston as you held me while I cried. Yes, that's when. Whew, this was rough.
Oh God, this one broke parts of us for sure. Mm-hmm. And then we flash forward to 2002. With another hearing, Arthur Sackler is again in front of Congress, specifically talking about Purdue. Not Arthur Sackler, sorry, the other dudes are talking about Purdue Pharma. And we see kind of, this I think was to show us the difference in the American government's perspective and legislators' perspective and like the change in campaign finance and like all of this kind of stuff. Because the senator, and I can't remember his name, in the first hearing in 1962 was really skeptical of marketing drugs and of and he was coming at Arthur Sackler for what he was known for kind of inventing, which is this, we'll take your regulations, we'll take your feedback on board, thank you, and then not. So there was pushback about wording that needed to be in the advertisement or that couldn't be in the advertisement, and Arthur Sackler said, we won't put it in the advertisement. And then the senator was like, but it showed up in the advertisement anyway. Like, so you lied. You are a liar. And then we get to 2002 and Senator Dodd is like, we all have to thank Purdue Pharma for helping everyone with all of their pain. And that was kind of like, how much money are you getting from Purdue Pharma, Senator Dodd? So that sets us up for, I think, this changing idea of what it's like to try and regulate a pharma company in the 2000s in the United States. And it's not much different now because we still don't have campaign finance reform. We still don't like a lot of regulations. But, we'll follow that through line through. Curtis Wright, who, for those of you who forgot, used to work for the FDA, co-wrote that special label that he gave OxyContin, now works for Purdue, and gets some intel from his friends at the FDA that they're thinking about rewriting the label. Effectively, this is the threat of the black box warning. And literally, like, Richard Sackler looks at him and goes, we brought you in from the FDA to stop this from happening. We don't have the proof that was actually said out loud, but we all know it. And we get Rick and Randy are also still trying to tie Curtis Wright somehow. They need somebody. They need somebody to turn. They need a big piece of evidence still. And Randy finds out from another friend of ours at the FDA that it is all well known that Wright met with Purdue for like 3 days before the label was released in a hotel room, co-writing the label and the efficacy report, I think, or the safety report.
I think it was I think it flat out they rewrote. I think he wrote the DMF, the drug master file. That's what I think he wrote.
Yeah.
Because that's what the label would be a part of, is the drug master file.
Yes. So this is the episode where Rick thinks that they can start proving that Purdue was lying to Congress because they've gotten all these documents from Purdue, and in those documents and in the work that they've done, they found emails that higher ups, executives at Purdue, knew the drug was being abused, that they were having discussions about its rate of abuse that predated their testimony to Congress.
In which they said they had no idea.
So they said in all of this filmed testimony that they did not know until 2000 that there was evidence of Purdue was being abused. But Rick and Randy have evidence from 1997. So they're like, we can charge them with lying to Congress. Which, again, is when they go, like, maybe if we charge them with this, they'll flip on the Sacklers. And I wrote in my notes, lol, you sweet summer children, in all caps.
You're adorable, is what I wrote. Yeah, you're adorable.
I just want to pinch your cheeks. You're so cute.
Yeah.
You're so cute to think that.
But I remember when I first started learning about the Sacklers, and I first started reading all these books, both Dopesick and then Dreamland and some other ones, I just kept thinking, surely someone is as angry at them as I am.
Yeah.
Like, surely, you're adorable, but only because it's with the trauma of hindsight that we have.
Yeah, only because you're a good person who believes in the capacity to change
and,
affect change. Which we do too. We're not, jaded that much. But yeah, we have the benefit of hindsight to look back and to know that it's still taken a really long time to hold them accountable. So all of this back and forth with the FDA gets us to the label change. Purdue decides, and Richard Sackler was heavily involved in this, that they can negotiate the label change so that it's beneficial for them. Which you think, how is that possible? Well, Richard Sackler does it. So the FDA orders the label change. It will have a black box warning, but they negotiate the language so that it says addiction is reported to be rare. They negotiate with the FDA that they can also keep selling it for moderate pain. And the FDA puts on the new label that it can be used for an extended period of time. And those are the three things that are a major flippin' victory for our friends at Purdue.
I know, I feel like I just melted off the couch at this point, and I was like, then why even have a black box? What are we even doing?
What is the black box doing if it's still telling the world that it can be used for toothaches forever? And that addiction is reported to be rare. Yeah.
Bees. Just bees from my mouth.
I don't know if we've said this on our Dopesick coverage, but we often say, our anger at the world is best expressed from that clip from The Mummy, where it's just
you just open your mouth and bees.
Open your mouth, swarm of bees. So if you see us doing that, friends and neighbors who are just maybe watching us for Dopesick, that's what we mean. That's one of our shticks. So Richard is like, this is great news. We can now tell doctors that people can take the drug indefinitely. Fantastic. All good things. Finishing up with the Purdue of it all. We get back and forth with Bridget. We find out eventually why her efforts to hold Purdue accountable were tanked, because we know at the start of the season that they were, but we were always building up to what happened, to why her investigation was stopped. So in 2002, she meets with the FDA and Purdue. She has her study that she's conducted on the autopsies for folks who died who were using Oxy as prescribed. And she found that 98% of reported overdoses where people had Oxycontin in the system, were from people who were taking this pill as prescribed, which is just catastrophic for Purdue. But...
Or is it?
Because, and we get all this back and forth with her boss and other people at Diversion that are like, you have to give them the report. You can't blindside them with this. She blindsides them. And what she gets is immediate pushback, especially from the doctor who works for the FDA, who sits there and agrees with Purdue that the data isn't strong enough. And this is basically when she realizes, the way the government and private companies are set up is that, this doctor lady doesn't want to piss off Purdue because she might need a job. Because she might need a job in a couple years. And people work in the government for so long, and then they go into the private sector. And so we learn again why Bridget was unsuccessful with her attempt at diversion. Her marriage falls apart, which we knew.
And I just want to interrupt here briefly in case, for people who aren't used to FDA and their circus of shenanigans, hiring FDA consultants is considered part of how you do business. Yeah. So this tiny company, who I hope you understand, are very ethical, and we don't perpetrate fraud against the American people. We've had to hire FDA consultants who were former inspectors. Sure. It is one of the only ways to actually understand an FDA inspection. they speak a different language. And if you're
Right.
not a massive pharma company, there's lots and lots of companies in this country that are subject to FDA inspection.
Right.
And many of them don't speak the same language as the inspectors. So we've had lawyers who specialize in FDA, consultants who specialize in FDA, everybody who used to work for FDA come in and help us make our product, well, our product was already perfectly safe, help us navigate the paperwork to prove that our product was perfectly safe, because it's very difficult. So I don't want you to think that these people that then go on to leave and work are all corrupt shills who go to work for Purdue. Some of them were on my payroll for a little while and are lovely people just trying to help us navigate the mess that is FDA. So I just wanted to bring that little insight to people who have not lived through my specific trauma.
That's such an important point, though, because it's so easy to vilify Curtis Wright, and I think the show wants us to. Mm-hmm. And I think we can.
And he might still be perfectly evil.
Yeah, I think we can.
But he might not be.
But for those of us that don't understand all, like, how we might see him as a proxy for, like, all.
Yeah, and he's not. He's a proxy for some, in the same way that Amber and Will are both proxies for different kinds of salespeople.
Right.
We don't get the balance of the other
Billy.
kind of consultant. Billy. Did I say Will? Did I say his real name?
You said Will. You said his real name, but that's okay.
Will
I can never
Poulter.
remember.
He's always, it's the eyebrows. He's always Will Poulter.
He is always Will Poulter. I know, it's fine.
So Billy and Amber are amalgamations.
Right, yeah.
We don't get a balance for FDA consultants. So I just wanted to bring in that they are part of the ecosystem of this thing.
Yeah.
And it's just not ever going to not be.
And I think, again, I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but you just use the word ecosystem, and I think that's so important to remember and to keep, I don't want to say, emphasizing. I was going to say hammering home, and then I was like, nope, can't say the word hammer anymore. Thanks, Richard Sackler. That's such an important point to keep emphasizing. Like, what this show does is show us the entire ecosystem that has kept Purdue Pharma alive, that has kept the poison that is OxyContin on the streets.
Yep.
And in pharmacies.
Yep.
It's all of these pieces together.
Yep.
That have gotten us to the point where, we know Rick and Randy's case finishes up in 2006. We get that in episode 2. To the point where we're in 2021 and we still haven't held the Sacklers accountable. Yep. So, excellent points of interjection as per usual, Dr. K. So that's what we get from the Sacklers. We get a lot of glimpses that Arthur was the real salesman from the clips that they show at the beginning and the end, and I think they really the show writers and creators wanted us to see that like, Richard is cut from the same cloth. Yeah. And he's following the patterns that his uncle established. And disgustingly, the new label leads their marketing firm to believe that they can triple their sales within 3 years.
So happy to hear that news for you. I love that journey for you.
I love that journey for you, as Alexis Rose would say. Finishing up with the investigation side of things, and then we'll move on to Dr. Phoenix and our Betsy. The investigation side of things. By the end, we're done with Bridget, really, and flashing back to her because we know it didn't go well. Shock of all shocks. So we've got Rick and Randy still, and they show up for a meeting at the DOJ to talk about the 3 people that they're pursuing. So it's the guy who's the president, I can't think of his name, and the 2 lawyers that were the 3 that testified before Congress. They're the 3 high-up executives at Purdue that Rick and Randy and Brownlee are going after so that they can hopefully get them to flip on the Sacklers. So all their lawyers want to meet because, as we learned, Rudy of 4 Seasons Total Landscape fame is now a representative. He's the lawyer for Purdue, and he's been lobbying at the DOJ and trying to convince the DOJ not to allow criminal charges against these individuals. So they all go to the DOJ, and that's what Brownlee gets told. They won't find support at Maine Justice for charging the executives with felony. Which Brownlee, God love him, just says, I don't care what Maine Justice thinks. And, like, I love the scene where, like, the three of them, what did we call them? Like...
The boy band of justice.
The boy band of justice. Like, the Mighty Ducks. They're like the flying V of justice.
The flying V of justice, yes.
Where they walk, like, in that triumvirate in everywhere. But specifically into that room where Brownlee is just like, I would like to announce that we're charging you with felony charges of blah, 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 blah. All these things. So, we're getting the federal charges. We'll leave it to episode 8 for Rick and Randy and Brownlee to figure out how they're going to make them stick and get support from Maine Justice. But those are all the moving pieces for the investigations. And we do find out, I'm sorry, I'm just check my notes here, that our friend Billy steals training tapes.
Oh, yes.
And I'm trying to find out if that's when he got fired.
Yeah, it was the party. Yeah. And then he walks out and saves Amber's job. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the next episode where he gets fired, though. We just see him in episode 7 stealing the tapes. So apologies for that spoiler. Okay. If you're, like, watching our stuff in conjunction with Dopesick people, I apologize. Billy steals the tapes. Again, I just told you it'll be relevant in episode 8. So that's all that jazz. Betsy and Dr. Phoenix. Methadone is working for Phoenix. We see him continuing to advance in his recovery. He wants to get his medical license back because that is his true calling, but they won't reinstate it if he's on methadone or even Suboxone because they are both listed as narcotics, and he is told that no medical board will approve it. We see him speaking to this wonderful nun lady, I'm not going to remember her name, who's a therapist. And she's doing the Lord's work in helping him through his recovery and reminding him of all the good that he did before his brain was overtaken by Oxy and rewritten by Oxy. He goes to see Dr. Art, who's somebody we met in previous episodes, and is this Appalachian doctor who is trying to hold Purdue accountable and provide treatment for people addicted. And so Dr. Art tells him it could take 2 years fully for the frontal lobe to heal. It might never heal. He might never get off methadone or Suboxone. But he suggests Suboxone as, the next step from methadone to try and get off it. And the Dr. Phoenix then, as part of his recovery, calls up Betsy and apologizes to her for prescribing the drug. And, I hope that was sent for their award reels. The scene with the two of them on the phone. He tells her about Suboxone. He offers to drive her to and from the clinic every week. Betsy is like, I'll think about it. She goes to her AA sponsor, and he tells her a whole load of horseshit.
He tells her what most people believe about Suboxone and Naxalone and methadone and all of the, I can't remember what the category of drug is called. My head says MATs, and that's not correct. Essentially that it's trading one addiction for another, and that it's just as bad as everything else. Now, he couches it in a whole lot of fundamentalist conservative religious language, but in my 15 years in this world, there is a large majority of people that believe fundamentally about the drugs what that guy believed.
Yeah. So, I was being harsh in my assessment. Because, we started this episode and we talked about it at the beginning of this video that you are now watching. And Dr. Kristen looked at me and said, I need to know if Betsy dies because I need to prepare myself. And I told her that she did. And so, it's coming, and you're waiting for the circumstance in which it comes. And so it feels really horrible that, hope is pulled away from her again as Phoenix is telling her about his recovery, and then she goes to the sponsor.
Then that conversation with her mom in the car,
oh boy,
is a masterclass of writing for me, because that is, I can't tell you how many people I love that have had that kind of conversation where it's like, well, I'm going to try this. If it doesn't work, I got to try something different. Yeah. And when Betsy says, I miss who I was, it like cracked me in half, because I've definitely met some people that enjoy their addiction. They are, maybe 3% of the people that I've met. Nearly everybody that I have loved and worked with just like hates it. Yeah. Hates it. Doesn't want to be controlled by it anymore. Doesn't enjoy it. Wishes that there was a different way, and they miss what life used to be. I know people that divide how they talk about their siblings and their loved ones. They say, well, this is addict so-and-so, and I remember human so-and-so. And it really does, to many people, feel like different cleaved personalities. Yeah. And she just cracked me open in this one. And God love her mom, just being like, yep, okay, we'll do it.
Yeah. And
Mayor Winningham having to like crawl through a flop house and find...
Oh my God, yeah. We didn't even say at the beginning of the episode, obviously if you guys watched it and you're watching our coverage, her parents are on the lookout for Bets. She's relapsed with heroin, and her mom finds her in a flop house and brings her home. And always trying to get Betsy clean is what they're trying to do at any means necessary. But as we talked about in previous episodes, you have to have community to be in recovery, to start the path to recovery. And the community her parents have is faith-based.
Yep.
And you combine that with the lack of knowledge. Like, nobody knows that it rewrote brains.
No.
People don't know that yet. That is not common knowledge. Arguably, it's not even common knowledge now.
It's definitely not now. Yeah. People don't know what Dopesick means.
Yeah. Certainly not when Betsy was trying to recover, even from heroin. And for me, I think the line that, like, I just think was one of the, like, most brilliant written lines in this episode was when they walked out of the church and she looked at her mom and she said, I don't believe in a higher power. I only believe in heroin. And I was like, this is what it is like. This is what she is telling you is her experience. And eventually she gets her mom on board, and her mom's like, I'll try anything. You want to try it? I'll try it. We'll drive you to the clinic. Fine. And in a heartbreaking attempt to, have some hope, see what's possible, Bets calls Grace and tries to reconnect and asks her if she got clean, they could start over. And we see in the scene a child crying, and so it is clear that Grace has moved on and has a partner and a child, and tells Betsy no. And Betsy returns to the flop house to get high one more time before she starts Suboxone. That's what she tells. She says, I'm starting Suboxone tomorrow, so...
Send me off good.
Send me off on a high. And the episode ends with... the episode ends with her death.
It's important to remember that that's how it ends for a lot of people, is accidental overdoses. While there are definitely, statistically we know, people that know that they are choosing to die on a certain level, the significant majority are accidental overdoses, bad batches, cooked it incorrect, and heroin stops your heart. Yeah. And it's what it does. It stops your heart. And this is one of those shows that's I feel so torn on how to talk to people about it, because there's part of me that wants to tie everyone to chairs and make them watch all 8 hours. Like, you have to experience this. You have to know, because they do every single performance is so spot on. And so, I mean, even like the guy, we're not talking about the guy who plays Richard Sackler because his name isn't as famous as Michael Keaton's, but like, I don't believe that he is the human incarnation of evil, but God, he's playing him really well. And it's just so visceral. This whole show is visceral, and I feel it in my body. And at the other time, like, there are people that don't know this world, and I would love to protect them from it. And so it's this dual kind of thing. And then my empathy educator self kind of takes over and be like, no, we're going back to tying everyone to a chair, because this has impacted
everyone.
And if you don't personally know somebody who has been addicted, or has loved an addict, this has killed a generation.
Yeah.
We have lost, I think I saw somewhere, like a quarter of millennial lives to this thing.
My God.
In some way, either their actual death, or we lost like years of their productivity and now they have permanent brain damage in some way, shape, or form. Like, we were the generation that got hit with it the hardest, in terms of the junkies and the recreational kids that jumped into it and all this kind of other stuff. And like all this typical political talking points, it drove up healthcare prices. And then you might love somebody who's in chronic pain who really does need a drug that they can stay on. And because we've been too busy proclaiming the glory of Oxy, we haven't been developing one that's actually safe for long-term use.
Yeah.
And so they're stuck using Oxy with all of the ramifications, or God forbid, Vicodin, with all, like, you essentially, you're sacrificing your liver if you're on Vicodin for a long period of time. And or they're setting themselves up to get addicted.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, just bees, all the bees.
I know. I struggle with the same kind of dueling concerns. But I think, like, you know, we have to face this. And, like, every single performance in this show is exactly what it needed to be.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I have felt a show, I was thinking about it because you said the word visceral. I don't think I have felt a show as viscerally as this one since, shocking no one, the last time Caitlin Dever was before my eyeballs and unbelievable.
Yeah, and there's other times I felt things viscerally, like I felt parts of Game of Thrones viscerally, but it's because they were going for my jugular for shock value.
Because of what they did to Daenerys.
And even, like, I mean, I stopped watching when Sansa was kidnapped and then raped for funsies.
Raped.
But that, and so there's other, I mean, like, you know, I mean, I felt it in my gut when Tony Stark died. Like, you know, there's some other stuff like that. But like what sets this apart is that they are going for zero shock value. There's no dramaturgical choice in this.
No.
That they made cheap. Whereas, like, the entirety of Game of Thrones is cheap. But, like, dramaturgically, everything is methodical in the same way that Randy and Rick are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's a really good analogy. I like that. And I just think, like...
And it does justice to the families that know what those houses smell like. And no.
We haven't talked explicitly as much about Mare Winningham as Betsy's mom. We've mentioned her when she's come up.
I mean, like, before this, I knew her as the mom from Grey's Anatomy who died from hiccups. Like, I don't have a great relationship with her work, but holy...
She has... Like, you know, they can't tell everyone's story, and we know this, right? They can't tell everyone's story. So many of these people are proxies, are amalgamations. We know Betsy is. We know Phoenix is. So, you know, Betsy's parents are amalgamations of stories. But she has just held the space when she's on camera in a way that's so graceful and devastating and human. Like, she's just so darn human in all these scenes. From the way she deals with Betsy coming out to how she talks about her addiction, to then that, like, we see this transformation in her as she realizes that the love of her child supersedes everything else.
Yep.
And she shows up to tell Betsy's story at meetings, and she, you know, and so for me, like, the juxtaposing of Betsy's overdose, which was in the end was very quiet, with the scream that Mayor Winningham lets out when the police officer shows up on her porch.
Yep. Yeah, if you don't watch anything else, watch the scene where that poor cop has to look at another parent in his community and say that this pill that is buying wings at the Met has killed another kid.
And I just think about, early on we get Dr. Phoenix testifying for the grand jury. And, you know, they're asking him if he prescribed OxyContin to his patients, and he said, I did. And he just pauses and he goes, I can't believe how many of them are dead now. And that's, you know, the humanness of these stories and the way they have done this show, not just with empathy, because empathy doesn't necessarily, like, empathy is recognizing humanity in other people. It is. But the compassion as well.
Yeah. Yeah. What we're going to get in episode 8 is a little bit more of what happens after Betsy dies, not only with advocacy and kind of some things like that. And we're going to hear kind of what happens in American political life. And it's all good updates, but I'll say this now because we'll say it again, but as we're talking about Betsy in particular, it doesn't feel done. Like, this series doesn't tie things off in a bow because, spoiler alert, it can't. And I appreciate that it doesn't ever try to do that. So what I deeply hope, as now we've kind of hurdled the thing that was always coming, Betsy was always going to die. Like, there was just no, if Phoenix lived, then Betsy had to die, narratively. She was always going to be the one who did. What I would encourage you to do as you watch this is look up some local names of opioid deaths. There might not be classified as them. They might be the obits in your town that say no cause of death. They may be the died suddenlies. There's still a massive stigma around death from addiction, and we don't often label it as such. But if there's a website in your town or a account of some fashion that lets you know the names of the real life Betsy's, we would encourage you to learn a few. We all know Richard Sackler's name. And it's important that more people learn his name so that we can scream it and get it stripped of its power. But in the same kind of thing of we don't need to talk about the names of people who perpetrate school shootings anymore, and we can celebrate the names of the lives they took. Someday, I hold out hope, none of us will need to know Richard Sackler's name because he will be the past tense. But we should all hold the lives that he stole. So if you don't know a name or two off the tip of your tongue, I would encourage you to find them and hold them and the ecosystems they came from in your heart and your life as we head into episode 8.
As a reminder, folks, please find in the show notes the link to send an email to the Department of Justice to call on Attorney General Garland to appoint a special prosecutor and a special counsel to look into Purdue Pharma and the crimes, alleged or otherwise, committed by them and the Sacklers in this crisis. So please make sure and do that. Every little helps. And we will see you all for episode 8.
Bye, everybody.